This might be one of the worst stories I have ever covered on this channel. It involves meatpacking plants. So this is a topic that we have returned to multiple times through the course of this pandemic, because it's been very clear from early on when pandemics started to break out in these environments that they didn't seem to care about whether their workers lived or died. And we have unfortunately, tragically found a slight way that they care, but it's perhaps even more sickening than a complete lack of interest. A wrongful death lawsuit tied to COVID-19 infections in a Waterloo pork processing plant that we've talked about that literal plant before on the show, alleges that during the initial stages of the pandemic, Tyson Foods ordered employees to report for work while supervisors privately wagered money on the number of workers who would be sickened by the deadly virus. There is a lot more, but let's pause on that. So they were forcing their workers to come back, even though many of their workers had already gotten sick. They were spreading it freely inside of the plant. They were forced to work or else they would be fired, and some had already died. And meanwhile, their managers made a game out of it, a game out of how many would get sick, would get maimed, would die.
This is literally Deadpool. I mean, like not the film, but like this is the concept of a Deadpool. You're betting on the likelihood of a person or a group of people dying, except those people are the people that you manage who have families and loved ones who are supplying food for the entire country. And you have decided to treat their lives as so like flies. Like I'm sure these people take care of their pets or like would take care of a cat or a stray animal much better than they are doing this right now with regular human lives. It's disgusting, not only that they're doing this, but that the system is set up in which any of these people have that kind of power and have that ability to do so. Again, accountability needs to happen.
Exactly, and like I don't see how, even without this story, all of what we've previously covered, and you can search the damage report, honestly, search Tyson, search Waterloo, and you'll come up with these stories, how their like entire management team, the owners, the CEO haven't been dragged off to prison already, but this is even worse. And so I'm just gonna rapid fire go through some of the elements of this because every portion of it is absolutely disgusting. Earlier this year, the family of the late Isidro Fernandez sued the meatpacking company, alleging Fernandez was exposed to the coronavirus at the Waterloo plant where he worked. The lawsuit alleges Tyson Foods is guilty of a willful and wanton disregard for workplace safety. So if they were, what would that look like? A wanton disregard for workplace safety. Well, Fernandez, who died April 20th, was one of at least 5 Waterloo plant employees who died of the virus. According to the Black Hawk County Health Department, more than 1,000 workers at the plant, over a third of its workforce, contracted the virus. I would argue that is what a willful and wanton disregard for workplace safety looks like. But that's sort of the beginning, okay? We get hit by the virus, maybe they couldn't see it coming. They totally could, but let's say maybe they couldn't see it coming. What they choose to do after that point, and so far this is stuff we've already talked about, gets even worse. So we're gonna update you. The lawsuit alleges that despite the uncontrolled spread of the virus at the plant, Tyson required its employees to work long hours in cramped conditions without providing the appropriate PPE and without ensuring workplace safety measures were followed. A county sheriff visited the plant and said the working conditions there shook him to his core. And then they have the individual plant manager who apparently got into this cash buy-in betting pool for supervisors to see how many people would get sick. Let's see, we've got John Casey, an upper level manager at the plant, alleged to have explicitly directed supervisors to ignore symptoms of COVID-19, telling them to show up to work even if they were exhibiting symptoms because it's just the glorified flu, he said. It's not a big deal and everyone is going to get it. Well, that's sort of a self-fulfilling prophecy with your attitude. Yes, almost everyone at the plant did get it. Let's see, we have him intercepting sick supervisors who are about to be tested and telling them to go back to work instead of actually testing. They allowed a man to continue working after vomiting on the production line during an international pandemic on the line in a place that produces and ships food. But after all, you can't have a person miss a half day of work after all. They've got people denying the existence of confirmed cases, but I wanna jump ahead because they also had this, which is possibly the greatest intersection of the capitalist profit at all costs motive with the horrible outcomes during this pandemic. Tyson paid out $500 thank you bonuses to employees who turned up for every scheduled shift for 3 months. So think about what that means. You'll get a bonus, so they get to pretend that they're helping their workers. They're workers who, by the way, they're forcing to work or else they will be fired during a pandemic. And if you miss one day, you don't get the $500. So 2 months into that, when you have a fever, what do? You could stay home, you could do the responsible thing, but you desperately need this money and it's contingent on you going in every single day. So Tyson knew exactly what they were doing. And the case toll, the death toll has shot up as a result of that. This is absolutely sickening. I doubt that there will be any legal consequences whatsoever for any of these supervisors, some of whom are being named in the lawsuit. But from top to bottom, the management should be taken out of there. Some of them obviously have legal liability. They should be sent to prison. Others should not be in charge of workers for the rest of their lives. This is absolutely despicable.
Yeah, when you mentioned the point there where you had the worker who was so sick that they vomited on the production line. Remember, this is for food, not like Xbox Ones. This is for food. Like, I hadn't even made a comment here being like the annoying vegetarian about why I'm a vegetarian, but like that fact alone makes the case for one of the reasons I'm a vegetarian. Our meat and food system, and I'm not blaming people who eat meat here. Our food system is evil, not just to the animals who like are an afterthought in the story, unfortunately, but they're being tortured and of course like harmed in this entire process. But the people themselves who are working there at this plant across the country. Tyson's not like a random sort of like hole in the wall thing. Like you could buy Tyson frozen foods like everywhere. They're all around the country in like almost every single store. So it's a very big responsibility that I appreciate that they understand they have here as a food distributor. That means you should be taking the sanitation needs during a pandemic even more seriously. And what happened in response to that, Tyson made it clear through the dead pool of employees, through incentivizing through money. There's no kind of incentive like that. Incentivizing through money for people to work through their sickness in order to get food out of the production line. It shows that they don't care about sanitation. They don't care about cleanliness. They don't care about their food. And so we're hearing about Tyson. I'm sure some of these things are happening in other food places as well. But especially as lockdowns start to commence and there start to be runs on food, be very careful and cautious about the stuff you put into your body.
Exactly. And remember, this is the most recent disgusting thing that they've been doing. But even in the run up to the pandemic, the Trump administration was letting these meatpacking plants, specifically for pork, increase their line speed, reduce the oversight of supervisors, increase the threshold for how much feces could be in the meat, how much hair, genitals specifically were mentioned. You could have more of that in your meat. This is the same place that had they denied bathroom breaks to their poultry workers, made them wear diapers, according to an Oxfam report a few years back. These are places that were run in an incredibly evil fashion before the pandemic, and what do you know? They stuck to their guns. It's really honestly perfect. Like they are. It is basically they are not humans anymore. The management, they are avatars of capitalism that look out on that production plant floor, and they don't see animals, they see meat, and they don't see human beings, they see meat. They regrettably still need this human meat to pull levers and advance a line, but they don't feel any more ethical attachment to any of the meat, human or animal, in that room. It is absolutely disgusting in every way, morally, ethically, and in terms of the food itself.
100%, John.
Check out the Damage Report podcast each day, wherever you get your podcasts, whether Pocket Casts or Stitcher or iTunes. You can join me as I give you the news and stories you want, with a range of co-hosts and interview guests jumping in on the fun each day. Again, that's the Damage Report, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you get them at iTunes, don't forget to rate and review. Sometimes I'll read them live on the show.